This is an audio version of an HSRI video interview with Valerie Bradley, HSRI founder and president emerita. My name is Stephanie Shire, and I am associate editor at HSRI. The title frame shows the words Celebrating Women's History and includes the HSRI logo, which is a silhouette of a Victorian house. There is footage of an aerial view of Cambridge, Massachusetts, the city where HSRI is headquartered. It is a clear, sunny day. This frame says, an interview with HSRI founder and president emerita Valerie, or Val, Bradley. There is a picture of Val. She is an older white woman with short brown hair. She is smiling and wearing earrings and a red jacket with a standing collar. This frame says interviewer, Stephanie Shire, HSRI associate editor. There is a picture of myself. I am a middle-aged white woman with long curly red hair. I'm smiling, and I'm wearing glasses and a cream-colored sweater. Now, I will provide a narrative introduction, followed by my interview with Val Bradley. Val Bradley is a nationally recognized expert in the field of intellectual and developmental disabilities. Nearly 50 years ago, Val founded Human Services Research Institute, and in 1997, she co-founded National Core Indicators. In honor of Women's History Month, we hear from our very own history maker in her own words. First question, who has inspired you in your career?
I started out in this field working for the California legislature as a staff person. And the man I worked for was a guy named Art Bolton. And he was a real visionary. And while I was working with Art, we facilitated the passage of some very important legislation, including civil commitment reform and the development of something called the Lanterman Act, which really established the community ID system in California. So he was a man ahead of his time, and really responsible for making California one of the first states to really have statutory foundation for the community system. So he was very important to me. But also people like Elizabeth Boggs, who really was one of the primary movers of the Developmental Disabilities Act. She was an extraordinary woman, and she stood about 6 feet tall, so she was a formidable human. She was a mom of a man with pretty severe disabilities, who at that time was living in an institution. But she also just saw over the next mountain. You know, she knew what needed to happen to create a better future. And then Gunnar Dibwad, who he was emerita professor at Brandeis University, but he was the first executive director of the ARC in the 50s. He was on the President's Committee on Mental Retardation back then, and was just a wonderfully warm, empathetic man who, again, envisioned the family support movement and other important moves to reform the system of services. So I would say those three had a big impact on me.
Second question, which professional achievement gives you the most joy?
National Core Indicators. It's just extraordinary to me that, for the small, hardy group of people that got around the table back in the 90s, to think about how to measure progress in the field of ID, that it's now in 49 states and the District of Columbia, and is the biggest database on the experiences of people receiving services in the world.
Third question, which personal achievement gives you the most joy?
I think finding and making some lifelong friends, both in the field and outside the field. My friend Ruth Luckison, who, I made a friend. You rarely make friends later in life. Usually the friends you make are the ones you knew in your teens and your 20s. And also a dear friend, Nina Totenberg, who I got to know when I was single and living in DC. So it's really having the both collegial friends and also close friends who are not part of the field that I've so it brings me a good deal of joy to know that there are women around the country who I can call at a moment's notice and they would understand and sympathize and support me.
That's wonderful.
Fourth question. If you could travel back in time, what advice would you give yourself?
Trust yourself.
Mm.
Know what your strengths are and what they're not.
Mhm.
Make sure to have people around you who complement you, who have the strengths that you don't have, and understand the importance of having a team that comes together with various gifts that all contribute to a successful whole.
Now for some closing thoughts.
The older you get, um, the more you realize that nothing is ever final. The gains that we made, certainly institutions have closed, but you've got to be vigilant continually with any kind of reform because there are always forces that will drag it back. You need to continue the pressure on the system. You can't give up.
Bradley. Look for Val's latest book, titled Self-Direction, A Revolution in Human Services. Co-authors are Mark H. Fenton and Kevin J. Mahoney. The cover of the book shows a crossroads with a wooden sign and two arrows, one pointing to the left and one pointing to the right. On the horizon, the sun is setting, and the sky is blue with clouds. Please leave a comment and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for listening.